And should we just do it, you guys? I want to read you one chapter per day for the next 39 days. And here's the thing, if you listen to it live and you have questions, I'd love to, just answer the questions as well. So, hi, Kate. Nice to see you. So, we're gonna get started because I have to duck out in about 23 minutes to go do two back to back podcast interviews. But I want to see if we can get through the prologue. If we can't get through it, I'll probably have to redo this live, but we'll see. Uh, do you know what this is about? It doesn't matter. It's aliens living on planet Earth. And the prologue is from the point of view of an alien living on planet Earth. And it's called Descent into Dark. Dun dun dun. Oh, what's gonna happen? Here we go. It was not her first time on Easter Island. In the beginning, Isha had frequently found herself on this remote rock that never failed to remind her of Favadan, the home planet she had left behind. It wasn't that this place looked anything like the uninhabitable Sarufi Desert or the bottomless cliffs of Navilia, whose massive craters could be seen from any of Favadan's three moons. The similarities between her home planet and this strange terrain were more metaphorical than literal. It was the way the ocean seemed to hold its breath between waves, the almost indecipherable hiss of the wind through the low grass, the pregnant stillness that shrouded the island during its darkest hours. Fleeting moments of Isha's earliest years as a new form were captured in the details of this place. It was no wonder that as centuries of separation drifted by, Isha had found it increasingly difficult to spend time in this particular corner of the blue planet that a council of elders had decided to call Thea. In reality, Thea and Favadan could not have been more different. As the first planet to awaken, Favadan was the oldest and the wisest in this young universe. In her wisdom, Favadan had given birth to the Kauri, a being so complete it held the knowledge of an entire planet within its corporeal form. Even before her awakening, Favadan had been a place of peace, a hub of interstellar creativity that welcomed all cooperative life forms. After her awakening, Favadan had become a conduit of knowledge, inspiring many races to return to their home planets and assist in their own awakenings. This was perhaps a result of the tempered calm of the Favadani, which was in stark contrast to the lawless turbulence displayed by the humans of this planet. Isha had compassion for these beings at first. They were nothing but children, after all, and as children, it was understandable that they would be influenced more by their creature instincts than by the sentience they had recently acquired. Thea was young, and it made sense that in her youth she would be reckless and her offspring would be dumb, deaf, and blind. Still, no amount of study, logic, or intergalactic exploration could have prepared Isha for the shock of actually living among an unawakened race. Even her extensive guardian training had proved inadequate in painting a realistic image of the unbridled waves of violence that plagued this planet. It hadn't taken long for Isha to wonder if there was something intrinsically wrong with Thea. Was it normal for a planet to be constantly on the brink of annihilation? Few were the humans who did not spend the entirety of their days in a defensive stance, ready to pounce at the gentlest rustle that stirred the shadows of their haunted minds. Isha's fingers curled around razor-edged rocks and her toes pressed into shallow grooves of the cliff from which she dangled. She closed her eyes and listened to the shatter of the waves below. If she listened intently, deep beneath the roar of the ocean, in that split second which separated one wave from another, she could almost make out the faint buzz of the swarming beings that did not belong to the sea, that did not belong to this planet. Ominous words of a homeless man she had encountered 2 years prior rang inside Isha's mind. "Everything will burn," the man yelled. "Boom, boom, boom, everything will burn." At the reference of fire, his eyes widened as he gestured toward the sky. It had been Thea speaking through him. Isha was certain of this. Thea was warning her and pleading for help. All existing knowledge, and there was an abundance of accumulative knowledge among 12 fully awake planets, suggested such a communication could not, should not be possible. Yet there Isha had stood, receiving a message from Thea and sensing deep within her consciousness that something was very wrong. The wrongness remained with her still, but it had evolved in the 683 days since the man's foreboding declaration. Even a feather becomes a burden if you carry it long enough. But this message was not a feather. It was an entire planet shrunk down into a marble, a wail of a secret swept into her home on the back of a whisper. The longer she held it, the more the wrongness expanded inside her, like a parasite claiming its host. Isha wondered how much longer she could hold on before it consumed her entirely. A gust of wind slapped Isha's back. She opened her eyes and softened her hardened shell. Her chin-length black hair fluttered atop her head like a bird in distress. Pressing into her fingers and toes, she pushed her pelvis away from the mountain and looked down between her legs. 200 feet below, a wave exploded against the lava rock, leaving behind a layer of foam. With spider-like agility, Isha crept down the cliff toward the ocean. When a dozen yards separated her from the jagged rocks below, she launched herself backward. A blink before impact, she hardened, and her rigid frame punctured the water like a bullet. In all of her 3,000 years on this planet, she had never gotten used to the sensation of liquids against her outer membrane. And of all liquids, she most disliked ocean water and its countless curious organisms ready to force their way into her. Maintaining a stony shell would save her the trouble of expelling them later, even if it did limit her range of motion. In these clear waters, her eyes made out details hundreds of feet away. She broke off a boulder the size of her own body and allowed its weight to pull her down into the belly of the sea. Her eyes scanned nearby grooves for anything unusual. Periodically, her bare feet encountered urchin-covered outcroppings. The pressure she used to push against these was minute, yet its force was enough to thrust her body downward. Her feet gently lowered onto the sea floor. In front of her, a narrow opening led into a cave beneath the island. Releasing the boulder, she squeezed through the entrance and followed the familiar buzz of thousands of microscopic mechanics into the pitch black of the cave. Even against her stony shell, she could feel the subtle collective vibration of the Moli Orat. What are the implications? By the time Isha came into being, Favadan had been awake for hundreds of millennia. All existing forms had been remade thousands of times in a new knowing. There was no longer any first-hand accounts of the pre-awakening days. All new forms knew about the Moliorat upon their arrival, many having had experiences with them in previous incarnations. The way of the Moliorat, which was only in its experimental stages before Favadan's awakening, was now a part of its modus vivendi, the planet's way of life. Isha's gifts were recognized upon her arrival. She was selected for Moliora training when she was just old enough to control her new limbs. To her parents' pride, she had not only mastered her command over the living machines faster than anyone in her class, but she had also established herself as a powerful channel, capable of translating information into frequencies beyond those of her kin. She knew this was how Thea communicated with her now. This was how Isha would stop whatever sinister plot she unearthed. Her fears were confirmed deep inside the cave. A glittering ball of light appeared suspended in blackness, brightest at its core where the concentration of the Moli-Orat was greatest. In the center of the light, an egg-shaped object 4 inches in diameter was wedged inside the lava rock so completely only small pieces of it peeked through open crevices. To a human, this device would be indistinguishable from the black rock that housed it. But Isha recognized it as a potuyel, a rare housing device forged of an indestructible material only found on the expired planet of Bafshagul, the dead giant. How many years have you been hiding here? She ran her fingers along the mouth of the stone where it touched the object. The thin layer of algae that covered the lip of the opening must have taken centuries to grow. But no algae grew on the probe itself, another confirmation of its alien origin. Whoever had placed it here had gone through much trouble to ensure its security. Still, too many of the mechanics had already separated from the potuyel and were bouncing aimlessly around in its immediate surrounding, a sign of a prolonged lack of supervision. The Moli-Orat grew restless as she worked. The ball of light expanded to encompass her body. A few lone explorers landed on her hardened shell, feeling for any opening they might find into her. The idea spread among them almost instantly. They may have been abandoned, but their connection remained intact, a sign of a unifying host consciousness. Isha brushed them aside and was surprised by their lack of attention to her. She split her focus and commanded them to cease and encountered a complete lack of obedience. They pushed and probed, bit into her stony membrane, and tried to break the barrier of her skin. Isha closed her eyes and pushed back, her will a focused beam of consciousness. The Moli-Orat paused an instant and resumed their attempted incursion. "Enough," Isha commanded. A ripple of energy ran through her and forced the Moli-Orat away. The lava rock shattered in her hands, leaving within her grasp only the unbreakable alien device. The light of the Moli-Orat dimmed as it became a thin shell around her. Even the glow of the potuyel in her hands diminished as those still trapped within it retreated into its core. They may be unruly, but they are still Moli-Orat, and Moli-Orat are made to obey. "Inside," she demanded, "now." The Moli-Orat did not go. Those surrounding her relaxed, as if ignoring her. "Whom do you obey?" she asked, but did not receive an answer. She was acutely aware that all her experiences on this planet, all her years of training that preceded this mission, all her years of study from the moment she first claimed this current form, it all had culminated in this precise moment of complete concentration required to probe the uncooperative device in her hand. Isha peered at the object, pushed her consciousness into it, inspected the microscopic machines as her mind floated alongside them inside the thing she held. She demanded answers and encountered silence. She expanded her awareness inside the device until she was the thing itself. Tugging at their consciousness, she attempted to make their minds her own. The Moli-Orat resisted. Then she saw their shells, thin and translucent, shielding each of the mechanics against precisely this type of interrogation. A secret where there should be none. She thought once again of the toothless man's doomsday prediction. With all the intensity available to a powerful channel, Isha translated the image of the man into every frequency within her vast range and projected this complex frequency band into the device. If she had broadcast this image into the universe in this way, every race on every planet would be able to receive it in its entirety. No matter who had created these Moli Orat, no matter what their host consciousness consisted of, they would be able to see and process the scene that had created such turmoil inside her. Isha hoped that in their response she might find a clue. She became still as she held the projection. Recognition rippled through the Moliorat. Isha heard the words, "Not yet," click through them like a wave. The thin shell of light that surrounded the herb became thousands of lines as the Moliorat darted into the device she held, and the thing became dim and obedient in her trembling hands. "Everything will burn," she heard the phrase echoed in a million mechanical voices inside the device. Was this truly its purpose, to destroy Thea? If so, who among the awakened would have devised such a plan that was in direct opposition to their mission of peace? Isha pushed the potuyal into her pocket, recognizing it for what it was, a weapon capable of destroying this world. A feeling of utter loneliness, the like of which Isha had never before encountered, spread inside her. The awakened, to be awakened, was to not know the loneliness. It was to be anchored in the universe as a fetus is anchored to its mother with its umbilical cord intact. Yet in this moment, Isha felt severed from all that made her belong. Can it be stopped? It was a rhetorical question. But as though at an answer, a school of more than 100 translucent fish, each less than a centimeter in length, swam into Isha's view. When they were in front of her, they moved in a zigzag pattern that was uncharacteristic for them. Isha recognized the pattern. It was the gesture that contained both a plea for help and gratitude for being saved, given by one Favadani to another after finding himself stranded on the exposed ridges of the Sarufi desert during the heavy air before a woody storm. "Give me life," the gesture said, "and I will repay the debt when I have life to give." Like so many ancient customs, it had become obsolete after Favadan's awakening. Isha accepted the plea with a nod of her head. It was only appropriate for her to respond with a human gesture. "I will give you life if life is at stake," she thought, though inside her she felt the crushing weight of a promise she knew she may not be able to keep. There you go, folks. Prologue of the 13th planet. And we finished it just in time so I can hop off and hop onto my podcast interviews. I hope you enjoyed it. We will do this every day. Love you, Madison. Thank you for being here. Yes. And here's the thing, if you buy it, send me your receipt at the very end of the 40 days. I'm going to do a raffle and I'm going to send the winner one of these cards. So, yeah, so if you buy it, definitely text me, message me, email me your receipt so I can enter you into the raffle. So, love you guys. I'm going to go. I have an interview at 5, but I'm excited for this. Let's read this book together. Mwah. Bye, everyone.